I've been obsessed with Dance Dance Revolution, or DDR, ever since I was a kid. The very first OhioCon held here in Cleveland years ago, I remember walking into the game room, seeing these crazy pads on the floor, smelling the aroma of gamer, and being completely obsessed and engulfed with it for the next 3 days. Back then, these B-Money games were so much more niche and hard to find. You really didn't see machines very much in the state of Ohio or anywhere in the US, and a lot of the series were limited to Japan. The first game I played that evening was Dance Dance Revolution 3rd Mix. It was pretty new at the time still, and all I can remember is being entranced by Eurobeat, specifically Butterfly. I think everyone was. Ever since that fateful day at that airport Sheridan, I've been playing Dance Dance Revolution pretty much on and off. A few years back, and before the great pandemic, I decided to finally invest in real DDR games. My friends and I at that point had been using borrowed versions of the game that we could play on our American PlayStations. The reality is, very few Dance Dance Revolution games came out in the US, mainly due to music copyright and licensing issues. So all the songs that we really wanted to play were kind of stuck on Japanese consoles unless we borrowed them from reputable online sources. So anyways, I went online to eBay and I ordered a Japanese PlayStation 1, which at the time was about $30 shipped, and I got all the Dance Dance Revolution mixes that I loved and grew up with, especially in the arcades and at home, for a very good price. Before video game collecting became people's retirement funds, these things were going for about $5 to $15 each, complete in box, and some of them practically brand new. I ended up picking up 3rd Mix, 4th Mix, 5th Mix, Extra Mix, and Dancing Sage featuring Dreams Come True. Now, Dancing Sage was, I believe, the European name for Dance Dance Revolution at the time. So, I got my Japanese PlayStation, I have my Japanese DDR games, I needed some dancing mats. Over the years, I've had many dance pads. Some people out there might remember Red Octane. They made pretty good pads for a while, but ultimately, they had the same fate as the rest of them. They held up for about a month or so, then they kind of just went downhill. We've always had major issues with keeping dance pads, non-metal ones at least, working, but they're the cheapest. There are a ton of offerings for dance pads on Amazon and eBay and everywhere else on God's green earth, so I decided to go and do something different. Instead of buying metal dance pads, which are very expensive up front and very expensive to ship and maintain, I decided to make my own semi-rigid pads that I could move around and store easily and take apart if I needed to. Here's what I did. The first thing I did was go on Amazon and find relatively highly rated, but still pretty affordable dance pads for DDR. I don't know what brand these are, they all look the same. Good luck, I'd read the reviews to see which ones are better than others. So far, these were cheap, but they've held up pretty well. I have my 2 dance pads here, and I do play doubles, so I have to have 2. Now here's what I did to make them a little bit more rigid. Let me grab this. Oh god. Okay. First thing first, I went to Home Depot and I had them cut pieces of plywood that were slightly larger, I believe 2 or 3 inches over the actual size of the dance pad. More on why I did that later. But that was the first step, going to Home Depot or Lowe's, anywhere that can cut plywood. I got a sheet of 1/4 inch plywood, I had them cut it to dimension, then I just took it home. Much easier to transport these in your car, especially if you don't have access to power tools at home. Before we go any further, let me stress, do not use just plywood for these dance pads, please. They have to have some padding. For a while, I used just wood and put the dance pads on top of that, and my feet hurt for about a year. It took a long time to recover, especially at my age and my weight, and it wasn't very fun. Please be aware, if you're going to make these, or something similar to this, don't just use plywood. You have to have padding. Speaking of padding, this is what I did next. These things aren't holding up very well. I haven't used them for a while, and they've been vertical for a very long time. But the next thing I did, after I got the plywood down, was I got this flooring padding stuff. It's meant for workout rooms, basements, places with like hard cement flooring to make it a little softer and easier on the feet. I took pieces like that, I put 4 of them down, I trimmed off the excess, then I used these. 1 second. I got wood screws about this size, no more than a 1/2 inch, and I took those and all around the outside, I drilled them so it would hold this foam in place to the best of its ability. It's very important you do that. If you don't, the foam's going to slide around everywhere. It's not going to be a fun experience. So I got my plywood down, I got my foam padding, 4 sheets cut to size, then I held them down with these screws, these number 8 1/2 inch screws. After that I needed 2, so when I'm doing this, for storage reasons and to hold them together better, I decided to use 2 hasps up here that I also drilled into the wood using these same screws. You can see right here, well maybe you can't see right here, but they are drilled right in. On this side here, I drilled these screws into there so it would hold into the wood itself. It didn't go through, which is something you have to watch. Don't let the screws go through the wood. That'll damage your flooring and your carpet. To make sure these don't come undone while I'm moving around, especially at my size, I jammed a couple carriage bolts through the hasp here so it doesn't move at all. They won't go anywhere while you're moving. So I got my plywood, I got my cushioning down, I got my cushioning secured, I got my hasp secured, I got the carriage bolts going through there just to keep it going. Now on the back side, you'd be surprised how much plywood will move around, especially on a carpet. So here's what I did to fix that. One second, I gotta get my stapler. As I said earlier, I haven't used these for a long time, and it shows. All the stuff that I had done to the back is completely falling apart now, but let me show you what I basically did. I took a staple gun, a lot of people have these lying around, and I took this material here. I don't know what it's called. I think it's a grip or non-slip material. People use it for couches, flooring, carpets. Some people line their cabinets with it, but all I did was take it to the back and then go ahead and put a staple right through. Actually, a lot of staples. If you have nice floors and you put staples in the bottom of this, you're going to do damage. It won't hurt the carpet that much, if at all. I have very cheap carpet down here, and I don't care if it gets hurt, so that's why I do this. But if you don't want to hurt your floors or carpet and don't want to risk it, don't do this part. Otherwise, let's quickly fix that up the best we can. My God. When's the last time I used these things? Do you remember I used these last?
It's been a little while, but you were using them a lot, though.
Every day, 30 minutes a day for a long time. I could have done this better. Man, what a mess. Okay, well, it's starting to look like something again. All right, that's close enough, I think, right? Does that look better?
Yeah, looks a lot better.
Okay, so for my purposes down here, I have it all set up now. My plywood, my padding, my halves, like everything together. Everything's bolted down and screwed down. This looks a lot better, although it's not ideal. So now I can just take this right like that. I don't know why. It's like I stretched these out, then bolted them down. They're not like holding, but I guess they were vertical for a long time. Now earlier I said that I had these pieces of plywood cut larger than the dance pad itself, and that's for one reason and one reason only. If I just put the dance pad down like this, it's going to move everywhere. How do you hold it in place? We're going to do the exact same thing we did all those years ago at the very first OhioCon. We're going to use my secret weapon, duct tape. Now, the important part when using duct tape in these mats is that you tape it close enough to the button, but not so much where it'll actually put the button on. What do I mean by that? Let's get our duct tape out here. Come on. Okay, oh, whoopsies. I don't know how to use duct tape apparently. Let's get a good piece of duct tape going, and I'll show you what I mean. If I take this tape and go across the button like this at an angle, it's going to act like that button is being pressed down all the time. It's very important to tape this the right way. What's the right way, you ask? You can kind of see the outline of where I had it taped before, but no more than about an inch in to that there. You want to have enough contact on the pad itself and whatever you're taping it down to. The reason I made this in the first place is because duct tape leaves residue on carpets, and that was not going to fly down here. Not that I care about the carpets, but it didn't look very good. Now, for some of you out there who are not as fat as me, a few pieces of duct tape will probably hold it down just fine. Unfortunately, I am quite obese, so I'll need to tape down pretty much every side of this, the most surface area that I can, like this. You just gotta get a little bit of room there so you don't have the buttons permanently on. I can tell you right now, this tape is way better than what I bought last. Used to have to go to an anime convention to find anime merchandise and models and things like that. And now you drive 15 minutes down the road and there's more anime merchandise lying around in a random store than there ever was at a convention 10, 20 years ago. The fact that I can say 20 years ago at this point is, that's not good. Actually, the first OhioCon would have been more than 20 years ago, probably 99, 2000, right? So I've been playing DDR on and off for the better part of 24 years. That's a crazy thought.
You are good at it.
Well, I gotta be good at something, right? Broken clocks right twice a day or something like that. There's one down, try to line it up. So we got one of our mats down. It feels pretty good, and I will keep taping if I have to. A lot of times it will move around a little bit. It wasn't perfect the first time, so it'll be my goal to make sure that when I'm going back and forth, there is little movement off the actual platform here. The hard part is making sure I can line up both arrows. If you've ever played doubles in DDR, you know that they need to be pretty precise here. So again, I'll take this pad, I'll center it. I think it's 2 inches oversized, and I'll start taping. Here's the tape. Look at that. Oh, man. Must be living right. What do we got? Maybe a inch on there at the most, and most of it's over there. When you get all four down on the sides, it's pretty much self-correcting. It almost self-centers after a while. So if you go too far one way and the tape starts bunching up on one side, as soon as you go the other way, it'll debunch and it'll bunch over there. So as long as you got a fair amount down and it has some grip to it, you'll be good. Just when it doesn't, that's when the problems start. The other issue, too, is start and select. On a lot of these mats, it's extremely variable where start and select are. So when you're looking at them and you're trying to decide, oh, where should I put the tape? You're thinking, oh, it's way off the start and select button. Then as soon as you go in the game, it just start. And it's like, oh, come on. I remember that was one of the harder parts at the cons back in the day, was trying to make sure they didn't get start and select, because then you think something's wrong with the pad. But chances are it's not the pad, it's your tape job. This is just, I'm not the originator of this. I can't even remember. I can see Eddie and Patty, I want to say. There's a guy named Eddie. I think he was in the Columbus area. There's a girl named Patty who was his girlfriend at the time. This is going back, again, probably to 9th grade. I remember them taping these things down at OhioCon. I'm pretty sure the Sheridan was mad at him because all the residue left from the tape on the carpets in the hotel. But, I mean, they industrially tape that, or they'll industrial clean it after a while. Doesn't justify it, but still, it happens. So let me get this up there. Let me get this undone. Okay. And there you go. So far, we have everything as good as we can make it before actually testing this out. A couple reasons why I have this solution. First off, everything in my game room is modular. It's meant to be moved around at a moment's notice to adapt to whatever I or anyone else down here wants to play. Keeping that modularity in mind, I made sure that I had that plywood split into 2 pieces. That way, if I want 1 pad or 2, I have the option. I also made sure I had a good solution to store it. I can split them apart or fold them and still take up less space than the average DDR pad. That's great. I guess we only have one more thing to do, plug them up and see if they work. So we'll get our Japanese PlayStation here. We'll plug up both our dance pads to this. And I think we got to go with my favorite mix, and that's 5th mix here. So let's pop in 5th mix and get things going. Power on. You have to have the old CRT. I know this is the wrong channel, so I'm going to fix that right now, because I had to plug it into the front. Remember last week when I took out that other PlayStation connector? Mm-hmm. Guess this one doesn't have the 3 on the back, so I had to put it back.
Of course.
Anyways.
It's always something.
Yeah, I know. It's just like whatever. Put in 5th mix. I haven't played on a CRT for years. This will actually be accurate. People got to remember that for a while, playing music games on these newer plasmas and LCD TVs was terrible. Even music games in general were terrible because it wasn't quite lining up. So people were having a rough time. LCD TVs especially had introduced game modes that got closer to the actual timing of a CRT. No delay, no input lag on these. But at the same time, we didn't have CRTs in the collection back then. We weren't going for that.
Right.
Only modern stuff. Everything had to be hooked up to the new stuff. All right, so far, so good. I don't want to make this too loud. I also don't want copyright problems, so we're just going to keep that quiet, see what happens. Oh, that's dead. Well, we're going to play a song here, but after doing all that, this one is dead, it seems. Completely dead, no response at all out of it. That's not surprising. It could be a controller port. It could be the gamepad itself. I'm not sure. At this point, both those things are pretty old and used. But this one still works. Let's try. Okay, so far, if you've done something wrong and you've taped too much on the buttons, what you'll see is the arrows going crazy. The menus will just kind of press themselves. They'll go up and down very quickly. It looks like one hit gives us one movement. That means we taped it right at least. No one cares about that. Let's go with her. I don't know why I'm worried so much. I'm just playing one song at that. Now, I'm wearing shoes. I don't recommend wearing shoes on dance mats like this. If you have a steel or a plastic one, go for it. Not on stuff like this. So I'm not going to go crazy. I'm just going to see if it works, make sure all the buttons are written correctly, and go from there. And hope I don't damage this. So we're just going to go off of what I remember in this song. I'm so out of practice. Haha. Wow, DDR is hard without the music. Oh, they're all red. Those are half notes. Okay. I want to listen to the music so bad. I need music. I can't do this. Anyways, you get the idea.
It works.
I hope this helps someone. As always, build something like this and use something like this at your own risk. It works for me, and I've been able to maintain it pretty well so far. I hope you like looking at my homemade DDR setup.